The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I am the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. Welcome to today's webinar. This is a live webinar, and we're going to be going over the leadership team function of creating goals in BNI Connect. So this is the opportunity for you to establish with your leadership team goals for your chapter. So such as, how big do you want your chapter to get? How many referrals are you looking to pass in your chapter for the next leadership team period, which can either be 6 months or a year. Today's webinar is being recorded, so it will be made available on our YouTube site. So if you go to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, this is our YouTube site, and you can see a number of recorded videos up here. Everything from online slips to chapter functions and reports to the social media aspect of BNI, and even a special message from Dr. Meisner. This webinar will be uploaded to this channel as well. You can also find this webinar and all our previous webinars by going to our support site. And you can get there by clicking on the question mark button within BNI Connect, or you can browse directly to support.bniconnect.com. You'll see our list of upcoming webinars, as well as a ton of documentation and assistance and walkthroughs and guides, including all of the month-by-month the webinars that have been recorded and successfully uploaded. And finally, if you'd like to, please join us as well on facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. And give us a like, and we'd love to share information with you here as well, including webinar announcements, tips and tricks, upgrade announcements, and things like that. But let's get today's content. And as I said, today is a live webinar, so if you have any questions as we're going through, please do feel free to type your questions in, and I would love to answer those questions as we're going along. The webinar is scheduled for 30 minutes, so I do hope to get through all the content, although once we're done with the content, I am always happy to stay on these webinars as long as people have questions. So let's get started. So goals in BNI Connect. Very important function for keeping your chapter on track. Now, my recommendation is definitely to sit down with your entire leadership team, meaning your president, your vice president, your secretary-treasurer, or in some countries it's your membership coordinator, as well as your president and secretary-treasurer. Also, you may want to talk with your director consultant for your chapter, and they will be able to help you establish these goals as well. But from a BNI perspective, here's how to enter those in. Now, the place to go, and let me switch over to our test region in Antarctica, so I'm not messing with anybody's data here. I'm going to go to our Shiver region, it's kind of cold up there, and our Burr chapter. So going here, what we're going to go to is Operations Chapter. And this will take us to all the things that we can do in BNI Connect from a chapter management perspective. And what we'd like to do is go into this Manage Goals function. And the Manage Goals function is what's going to take us into the place where we can either view or establish the goals. And you can see here there's two options. The first option is to enter the chapter goals. Again, this is where we're going to go and do the entry for it. But there's also the View Chapter Goals. Now, there are two different views. So the Enter Goals obviously is going to have a place for us to put the data in. Now, the View Chapter Goals is a great function because it also will show you, after you've submitted the goals, what your actual results are for those goals. And the View Chapter Goals function is available by default to all of the members of your chapter. So that's not just a leadership team function. Once you enter these in as a leadership team, your members will be able to follow along with you. The Enter Chapter Goals function is usually only available to the president, vice president, and secretary-treasurer, though. So you do need to be listed as one of those positions in order to access this function. If for some reason you don't see the Enter Chapter Goals function here, please do talk with your chapter director consultant or your regional office, and they'll be able to help you out with that. So let's take a look at the Enter Chapter Goals function. I'm going to click Enter Chapter Goals. And the first screen that we're going to come up to is a place where we can choose a couple of things. The first one is it's going to, by default, choose the next 6-month period in BNI. As you know, may or may not know, the leadership team positions go in 6-month cycles. So it's always from April 1st to September 30th, and then it starts again on October to March 31st again. So by default, the system's going to pick up the next set of goals, assuming you've already entered these ones. I'm going to switch this back, though. You can actually choose any set of goals, any set of date ranges that you'd like. So I can go back to April of this year if I'd like to, or I can pick a different 6-month period. I can start in January if I'd like to. But I'm going to go from April 1st of this year. And the next two things it's going to ask you is for your long-term vision and your mission statement for the chapter. So the long-term vision is kind of where do you see yourself in 6 months or a year or 5 years. So I put a very simple one in here, just grow the chapter, but it would be helpful to have something more creative than that. So it may want to be grow the chapter to the largest chapter in the entire continent. And maybe something about the amount of referrals and or business that we might want to have as far as goals go. So maybe something like, in addition, we wish to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So that would be a nice long-term vision for this chapter. Now the mission statement is more, how are you going to get there? And what are going to be your main focuses and ideals in the way of getting to that long-term vision? So I put in one here that was to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals and create positive community goodwill. So again, the long-term vision is where do you want to go? And the mission statement is how are we going to get there? So now I've chosen my date range, and when we establish goals, again, we're going to be establishing them for a 6-month time frame. So I chose to do that starting from this month, April, and it will give me 6 months worth of goals to fill in. So once I click Go, this will bring up basically a spreadsheet that allows us to enter in the goals. Now you'll see that it's broken into a couple of different sections. So at the top here is the most important decision we need to make before we even start entering goals into the system. We need to decide whether the numbers that we're going to put in are going to be whole chapter numbers or whether they're going to be per member numbers. Now there's an important distinction in really the size of the numbers that are going to be put on here. So for example, if I was to look at the total number of one-to-ones that we're putting in, if I'm going to put in a number for the whole chapter, what I'd be looking for on a monthly basis is I'd really kind of have to do the number of one-to-ones we're doing times the number of members times, basically 4 weeks. If I'm doing that per member, I would just take the number that I'd expect for each member and multiply it by the number of weeks. It comes down to really a personal preference. Do you like looking at a big number, or do you like looking at a smaller number that's more of a per member average? On the bottom of the screen, we'll see that there's a scroll bar, and this is all of the chapter success factors. So we can see that we have the attendance percentage, that's the first one. So that's going to measure how many people are present on a given week. We have the total number of one-to-ones. We have the chapter education units, or the CEUs. We have the visitors, number of new memberships on a monthly basis, the total number of members in a chapter, total number of referrals, and the thank you for closed business. Under each goal, or chapter success driver, what you're going to see is what you want to put in for the actual goal. And then you have 2 fields called mechanisms. Now, mechanisms are specific tasks or things that you're going to do during that month in order to achieve those particular goals or work towards achieving those particular goals. So those are things like, are we going to do educational moments? Are we going to have a visitor's day? Are we going to do the BNI game? Are we going to, what activities are you going to perform to promote those particular goals? So let's take a look at some of these goals in a little bit more detail. Now, the first goal that we have here, the first success driver, is the attendance percentage. So this one is, again, it's not going to matter whether it's the whole chapter or per member on this particular one, but what do you want your attendance percentage to be? So let's say that you already have great attendance and you're just looking to tweak that, so maybe you want it to be 100% attendance. Or maybe you're struggling with attendance a little bit and you'd like to work your way up. So let's say that this chapter in Antarctica, people like to sleep in up there and they can't get to the meeting on time. So it's going to say we start out at an attendance percentage of 80. That's approximately where we're at right now. And then we'd like to obviously work on increasing that percentage over a course of time. So let's say over the next 6 months, how would I like that attendance percentage to increase? So let's say conservatively, I'm going to bring it up a couple of percent. We're going to hope to increase that a couple of percent per month. So I'm going to bring that up to, let's say, 84%, and then 88%. And then maybe we get this up to 92%, maybe 93%, and then 95%. So this is where I want to get to. So by the end of September, I'd like to see our chapter, the Burr chapter, get up to about a 95% attendance average. So what are some things that we can do in order to increase our attendance in the chapter? Well, there's some obvious ones, things like educational moments. So maybe we're going to do in April here, we're going to do an educational moment on the importance of being at the meeting and networking. As Dr. Meisner often says, you can't get a haircut over the phone. And in the same fashion, it's hard to do face-to-face networking unless you're face-to-face with somebody. And what's another mechanism that we can do to help to increase our attendance percentage? So maybe we're going to do something like maybe we'll start the BNI game in April, which has a function in it that allows us to keep track of attendance, and hopefully by giving a point system to it, we wake up everybody's competitive spirit and they participate in this BNI game. Now, if you'd like some more ideas on various mechanisms, there's a button up here that says Chapter Goal Guide. And the Chapter Goal Guide is full of ideas for mechanisms that you can do in your chapter. So if I click on this, we'll see a pop-up. And this will show us goal mechanisms and possible mechanisms for each benchmark or success driver. And for attendance, we see we have a number of different ideas here. Now, in no way, shape, or form is this a complete list. There are plenty of more things that you can do, but hopefully this gets the creative juices flowing for you a little bit so that you can take a look at some possibilities anyway. And of course, your chapter director consultant, your executive director, your regional office will definitely have some more ideas for you. So here's just a couple of them. Again, we have the Play the BNI game was one of them, and the education on it, importance of why it's important to be there and be there on time. Perhaps another one, and the BNI game usually goes on for a couple of months. So maybe the BNI game is going to start in mid or late April, but we're going to continue that BNI game through the end of June. So we already have a success driver there filled out for the next couple of months. And we can do the same thing for the next few months. So maybe we're going to be sure that in May that the membership committee is compliant with letters. And again, you can fill out these goals all the way out through the next 6-month period. Now, recommendation, just as with any other computer-based text system out there, you do want to save this every once in a while. And you'll notice there's a Save button down at the bottom of the page. So if I click Save, it will just ask me if I'm sure and I'm OK. And that will just save my progress. So if I walk away from the computer for more than a half hour and it logs me out, I won't lose anything. Or if the power goes out in the middle of this, we don't have to go back and retype it. Those will be saved for us. So let's take a look at the next chapter success driver here, and that's the total number of one-to-ones. Now, you can see that I'm doing this for the whole chapter. One thing to keep in mind is we can't switch back and forth. So the for whole chapter or for member will apply to all of your chapter goals going forward. So I can't choose, let's say, for whole chapter for one-to-ones, but I want to do per member for CEUs. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So you do need to stick with one. So what would be a good goal for total number of one-to-ones? And again, keeping in mind that I did this for the whole chapter. Now, this chapter has approximately 20 members in it right now. So I've always been told that I should have a goal for myself of doing at least one-to-one per week. So if I take that one-to-one per week and I multiply it by the 20 members in our chapter, that's 20 one-to-ones per week. And let's just assume that there's 4 weeks in a given month that we're going to be recording against. So I'm going to say that we're going to be doing, our goal is to get to 80 one-to-ones per month. So maybe what I want to do, though, is work my way backwards on this one a little bit. So let's say that I have 80 one-to-ones here, and that's my goal that I'd like to get to in the next 6 months. And last month, we only had about 45 one-to-ones per member for the whole chapter. So let's start with bringing this up to 50 by the end of the month. So let's just start splitting the difference. Maybe by the end of next month, I'm going to get to 58 one-to-ones, and then maybe, I don't know, 66 one-to-ones. And then I'm going to get this up to 72 one-to-ones, and 78 one-to-ones, and 80 one-to-ones. So that's our nice goal to get to over the next couple of months. Now, the other great thing is that we're already doing the BNI game, so we actually already have a mechanism that will help drive one-to-ones for the next couple of months. So I'm just going to put that mechanism in here. Oops, wrong field. So let me put this back in and do the BNI game. And we're going to be doing the BNI game for the next couple of months. So we already have one established here. So what are some other things that we can use to help to establish one-to-ones? One thing might be doing the meeting stimulant, that is, you do somebody else's 60-second. Usually in order to do that, you end up having to do a one-to-one with that member first. So that would be a great mechanism. So let's say meeting stimulant, other members 60-second. So that would be a great way to enhance the number of one-to-ones that we're doing. What are some more ideas? Well, let's go back to our chapter goal guide and take a look. So here's some other ideas for you. Making sure that you acknowledge people for the most one-to-one. So that's a great one, some recognition in the chapter. You can also implement the mentoring program. That's a great way to get some one-to-ones done, especially for the new members, to make sure that they have a member. So again, there's a number of different mechanisms, possible mechanisms for you to spark some ideas as you're meeting with your leadership team. And again, you want to plan out for the next 6 months or so. So what's the next thing that we have on here? And that's the chapter education units. So again, in our chapter, we tell all of our members that we should be trying to average 1 CEU per week per member. So this one for us is actually going to pretty closely resemble the total number of one-to-ones. Now, unfortunately, we have a little bit of a bigger hill to climb on this one because nobody's doing any CEUs in our chapter. So I'm going to start a little bit lower and make this start at, let's say, 25 CEUs in the first month. And let's see if we can get this up a little bit quicker, maybe 40, then 50, then 60, then 70, then 80. And what are some things that we can do to increase CEUs? Well, maybe one thing is to have a guest educational coordinator. And that way, some of the members in the chapter that might be helping to present that will need to do some CEUs in order to research their topic. Maybe another great mechanism would be to do an educational moment. I'm going to start abbreviating that as EM for educational moment on the BNI podcasts. And maybe another one is to, when we get SuccessNet in, we're going to forward that to the whole chapter and have a quiz on it. And if you're looking for some more mechanisms, again, let's take a look at the chapter goal guide here. And what are some other things we can do? Again, we can promote the availability of training. So maybe another idea is if you don't have an event coordinator in your chapter, making sure that you have an event coordinator or an announcement coordinator so that somebody announces all of the upcoming training opportunities at every meeting. Making sure that you're using the CEU tracking slip. Everybody likes to pass in paper and get credit for what they're doing. So that might be another great way to increase the CEUs in your chapter. And again, there are all sorts of ideas here in the chapter goal guide. So let's take a look at the next chapter success driver, and the next one is for visitors. So how many visitors do we want to get on a monthly basis? Now, in our chapter, we've always taught that we should all be doing our best to bring in 1 visitor per member per month. So on a monthly basis, we would hope to get in this chapter 20 visitors on a monthly basis. So now let's make that our goal for 6 months from now, because we're not quite doing that yet. And maybe I need to backtrack this one a little bit, maybe 18 the month before, 16, 14, 12, and we brought in 8 visitors last month, so let's try to increase that to 10 this month. And what are some good mechanisms for bringing in visitors? Well, we're already playing the BNI game, so I am going to make sure I put the BNI game in here because the BNI game does have points associated with bringing in visitors. So we have our first 3 months already planned out for some mechanisms. But what are some other things that we can do? Maybe we can make sure that we have a growth coordinator for our chapter assigned, and that person can make sure that they're announcing what the plans are to bring visitors. And maybe another thing to do is to have a bring your substitute day. And again, if you're looking for more ideas, click on the chapter goal guide. We can scroll down to visitors, and there are stack days. There's visitors days. They're creating industry tent cards, playing the BNI game, handing out CDs on the topic of inviting visitors. The next chapter success driver is the new memberships that we're looking for in the chapter. Now, every chapter in the world has, at a minimum, usually an attrition rate of about 8 to 12 members per year we're going to lose from our chapter, just based on people leaving for even legitimate reasons, moving, they're relocating to another area, they're changing jobs, whatever it might be. We always do need to be bringing in new members into our chapter. So in order to do that, let's come up with a goal for number of new members. So ideally, we want to be having at least 1 new member, but if we really want to grow our chapter, we probably need a little bit more than that. So I'm going to start this off, though, with 1 new member a month here, 1 new member a month here, and then we're going to start to crank it up a little bit, and we're going to look for 2 and 2 and 3 new members per month after that. So what are some good mechanisms for new memberships? Well, again, if you're bringing visitors as part of the BNI game, that is a great way to also increase membership. So I'm going to put this in as something we're already doing for this particular procedure. Maybe in the month of April, though, we're going to make sure that we have the visitor host program fully implemented. And that way that we're welcoming to our visitors, which is going to make them hopefully strongly consider applying to the chapter. Maybe another thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're doing a good job with visitor orientation, where we excuse the visitor at the end of the meeting. So what are some other mechanisms that we can use? We can click on the chapter goal guide again, and scroll down to new memberships. So making sure that the visitor host is running a proper visitor orientation. Maybe implementing a referral thank you program. Maybe you're making sure that the membership committee is interviewing and attracting high-level players. So these are all different ideas for things that you can implement on a monthly basis to increase the number of new memberships. So the next thing is the total number of members in the chapter. So let's take a look at this one. We'd like to grow to be the biggest chapter in the entire country of Antarctica, but let's start realistically. So right now we're at 20 members, and as we saw just above here, we want to add at least one new membership this month. So we're going to plan on keeping all our members and adding one more. And the same thing for the next month. And then by the next month, maybe we're at 23, and we're going to keep both of those and go to 25. Bring it up to 27, and then hopefully by the end of this 6-month period, we'll be well on our way to a membership of 30. And again, what are some mechanisms we can do for this? And they may be very similar to our number of new memberships. So maybe one thing we can do is, again, we're going to be doing the BNI game, which is going to help with this. And I'm going to keep that across here. Maybe another thing we can do is making sure there are some empty seats around the table. And one suggestion I've heard in the past is to make sure you have place cards in front of those empty seats for the profession you're looking to fill. Maybe an educational moment on filling contact spheres. Oops. And there we go. And what are some other mechanisms? So if we look at the chapter goal guide, we can see there's one idea here: to execute effectively on the visitors per month. So let's look at number of referrals. Now, number of referrals, again, we're pushing for one referral per member per week in our chapter, so I think that's a pretty good goal to get to. So let's end up here again at the end of 6 months with 80 or 20 referrals per member per week, and work our way back again. And some mechanisms for referrals. And once again, we are doing the BNI game. And another good mechanism for this is to maybe concentrate on specific 60 seconds. And again, for more mechanisms, we're just going to look at the chapter goal guide. So again, we can schedule a BNI social. That would be a great idea. We can hand out, make sure that we're passing around the VP reports so that people can see their progress through the month. And again, plenty of other ideas. And the final thing we have on our list is the thank you for closed business. So in our chapter, we're looking to be a $1 million chapter this year. Well, in order to exceed those expectations, we're going to need to pass about $100,000 in thank you for closed business per month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a chapter goal of $100,000 per month. And that will get us to well over $1 million by the end of the year. So what's one way to make sure that we're doing our thank you for closed business? Again, the BNI game will help us with that. And we're already doing that. Another one might be an educational moment on the thank you for closed business slips. And for some more ideas, we can again look at the chapter goal guide. So one good idea from here is to make sure that we're acknowledging our members that are passing in the most thank you for closed business dollars. Now, once we've done all of our filling out, or as much as we can do on a day, we're going to make sure that we click the Save button. We can see that it said saved successfully at the bottom of the screen. And at this point, we can go back to the previous screen. We can review these again. Once we're sure they're okay, I'm going to go ahead and click back again. And now what we can do is view the goals. Now the great thing about viewing our chapter goals, and I'm going to review this current 6-month period, so I'm going to start at April 2013, is that as you fill out your POMS reports, you will start to see the actuals populate. So it will tell you what your actual percentage was for your attendance or for the number of referrals that you've passed or the total number of one-to-ones. So this is an easy way to go back through and see what you planned on doing, as well as see how you are doing based on the current numbers. Now again, there's not many actuals in here because, again, we haven't gotten to those months yet, but also because we haven't submitted many POMS reports in the chapter up there in Antarctica. So that's the chapter goals program in BNI Connect. We are at the bottom of the hour, so I would like to, at this point, make sure that if anybody does need to leave right away, I wanted to thank you guys all for your time today. Again, this webinar in its entirety, including any upcoming questions, is being recorded. It will be made available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. It's also available on our support site, support.bniconnect.com. And if you scroll down to the bottom, again, there's a webinars section. This is also all documented in the chapter operations walkthrough. So if you click on chapter operations, and you can go to the entering chapter goals, it'll remind you where to click and what to click on and what all the different fields mean and how to do the data entry. So what I'd like to do now is to open it up to any questions. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions now. All right, so we do have one question here from John. He says, so how often do the actuals update themselves, or is just to wait for the actuals to appear? And actually, as soon as you save those chapter goals and go back into the view function, you will see all of the actuals updated immediately. So as long as the POMS reports have been previously submitted, you will see those results right away. So correct, John. In previous versions of BNI Connect, you used to had to wait 24 hours after submitting the chapter goals before you would see the actuals appear. But as of the last release of BNI Connect, we had a great enhancement that allows those goals to be shown with their actual totals right away. So as soon as you've saved them and you go into the view function, it is populated with live data. Excellent. All right, that was the only question I have so far. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, well, again, I'd like to thank everybody for their time today. A good referral for me is if you found this webinar useful, please do let your other chapter members know either about the recording or please to join us on one of our upcoming webinars. The next webinar in our schedule, you can find this on the support site or you can find it on your regional calendar. But the very next webinar is on April 10th, which is Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. This one's going to be on connections, groups, testimonials, and more. So all of the social media functions within BNI Connect, how to find other people in BNI Connect, how to get found in BNI Connect, and then how to have those conversations and one-to-ones with people in BNI around the world. So I welcome you to please join us on Wednesday. I look forward to seeing you on YouTube. Please join us on facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Happy connecting, everyone.